the meeting will come to order. Please take your seats. Thank you. I find that the warrant for this annual town meeting has been properly executed and properly served. Return of service made by a constable of the town of Littleton.
Oh, say, can you see by the dawn's early light what so proudly we hailed at the twilight's last gleaming, whose broad stripes and bright stars through the perilous fight o'er the ramparts we watch were so gallantly streaming, and the rocket's red glare, the bombs bursting in air, gave proof through the night that our flag was still there. Oh, say does that star-spangled banner yet wave for the land of the free and the home of the brave.
Thank you very much. All right. All right, and thank all of you as well for joining us here for the annual town meeting 2022 edition. This will be the first time in the past 3 years that we've been able to gather on the first Monday in May here in the K Gymnasium for town meeting, and hopefully that's a sign that things are getting back to normal. And just some preliminaries before we get started. I hope that everyone has brought their copy of the town meeting report, or they were able to get one tonight. You should have received it in the mail a week or two ago. And that will contain all of the warrant articles and motions that'll be voted here tonight. Also, there was a green update sheet on your way in with a couple of updates to the motions under Articles 3 and 20, and I hope you got a copy of that as well. Just a few preliminary rules of the meeting, if you will. Presentations are limited to 10 minutes, both pro and in opposition, formal presentations. We're going to experiment with a 3-minute per speaker rule tonight. We had been going with 4 minutes previously. We're going to go with 3 minutes tonight, and I hope that doesn't feel too difficult for anyone. 3 minutes per article. No one can speak more than twice, unless there's no one in line or there's new information. There's a compelling reason to speak twice on that article. Also, we've instituted a new rule that we'll have no new business after 10:30 p.m. unless there's a reasonable chance that we can finish before 11. And if you've seen the warrant tonight, I don't think the 10:30 rule is going to come into play. Certainly, a lot of tonight's warrant are necessary articles, necessary business of the town. There are things that town meeting needs to approve, but not necessarily controversial in a lot of cases, and we'll be handling those hopefully with the call of the articles and the consent calendar. I just point out to you the emergency exits in the event that that becomes necessary. All speakers must be recognized by the moderator, and you must line up at the center microphone if you wish to speak. And please, I'm sorry. It's twice in certain situations. Yeah, once under normal conditions. So we just ask that people respect one another. We expect the discourse will be civil. It nearly always is. Personal remarks and rude, disrespectful speech is not tolerated, and honestly, we don't have a lot of that, and that's a credit to you. Also, all questions need to be, as a formality, submitted through the moderator. So if you were to come to the microphone with a question for the select board, you would phrase it, it's kind of like Jeopardy. You say, through you, Mr. Moderator, I have a question for the select board, or whomever you have the question for. And please state your name and address for the record when you do come to the microphone. We're going to, once again, go through the call of the articles, which is the use of the consent agenda procedure, whereby we bundle articles that sort of history has proven are not controversial. They're annual authorizations that town meeting must vote, but they are not, in our view, not remotely controversial, and we think they can be bundled together and voted with a single affirmative motion. However, as I read through the articles, if anyone wants to put a hold on that article because they want to discuss it, they want to debate it, they have a question, please feel free to do so. I don't want anyone to feel that we're trying to rush into something. However, having said that, there are a number of these are kind of ripe for that kind of treatment. So I'll read through the articles that we've deemed can be handled in that way. There are a number of articles that are not going to be handled in that way, and just to give you a preview, we won't handle the operating budget that way. We won't handle any of the new articles or anything town meeting hasn't seen before in that way. Those new articles will be debated as they normally would be. We won't be handling 31 Shattuck Street, the senior center project, in that manner. That's going to be debated as an article normally would. I'd also point out to you that we expect to pass over 3 articles tonight, that is, have no motion made for Article 18, the funding of collective bargaining agreements. There are none to be approved at town meeting. Also, Article 26, the citizens petition for the removal of the use of plastic bags, right? I think it was intended as a ban on single-use plastic bags. The petitioners have asked to withdraw that. We'll pass over that. You'll likely see that in the fall or at a future town meeting. It wasn't in the proper format to be acted upon, but we do think it'll come back to town meeting at a future date. So Article 26 and Article 27, budget line item transfers. Again, the town does not have any line item transfers. There's no necessity for that article. So Articles 18, 26, and 27 won't be offered tonight. With that, I think we can get to the call of the articles. And once again, I'll read them off. If I hear no hold, no objection to that, article will be added to the list of those we'll vote. We'll take one vote to approve all of the non-held articles. if that's clear. We've done this for the past several years. There's always a little bit of confusion. So why don't we give it a try? Article 1, Town Officers. Article 2, Annual Report. Article 3, Bills of Prior Years. Article 5, Departmental Revolving Funds. Article 6, Water Enterprise Fund. 7, Sewer Enterprise Fund. 8, Park, Recreation, and Community Education Enterprise Fund. 9, Capital Items from Available Funds. 10, Community Preservation Budget. 11, LCTV Receipts Reserved for Appropriation from the PEG Access Fund. 12, Capital Transfers. 13, FY 2023 Compensation Grid. 14, Capital Stabilization Fund. 15, Debt Exclusion Stabilization Fund. 16, Use of Debt Exclusion Stabilization Fund for FY 2023 excluded debt. And then lastly, Article 19, Senior Citizens and Veterans Tax Work-Off Abatement Programs. And I didn't hear a hold on any of those, so if I could hear a motion to the effect of approving all of the articles in the consent agenda, inclusive of the individual motions listed in your handout under each of those articles. So that's okay? Second? Okay. Thank you very much. All those in favor signify by saying aye. Aye. And those opposed? Okay. I declare it a unanimous vote. Madam Clerk, please so record. Thank you very much. And we've now handled a good number of articles that had to be on the warrant to keep the government moving forward, but they were not necessarily ones that you've spent a lot of time debating in the past, and we singled them out for that purpose. So that brings us to Article 4, which is the FY 2023 operating budget. And you'll see it encompasses 8 or 9 parts of 10 pages. I propose to handle this, as we've done in the past, as what's called a partial division of the question, which means I will read through the departmental budgetary totals, and once again, you'll have an opportunity to say hold if you want to ask a question about a departmental budget. You'll have the opportunity to do that on every line item in the budget, every departmental total. And we'll go through the entire budget. We'll take a vote on those line items where no one had a hold. Then we'll go back and deal with the questions that people wanted to ask about the various elements of the budget. All right, and I'll just put the motion on the floor, moved and seconded by the Finance Committee, that the town vote to approve Article 4 as printed in the warrant and as printed in your handout this evening. All right. And again, I just propose to read the departmental total that's going to be in the FY 2023 recommended column, which is all the way to the right. Prior years are shown for informational purposes, but you want to concentrate on that FY 2023 recommended column. Okay. This is under general government. The total for town report and town meeting, $30,866. Moderator, 100. Select board, 44,800. Hold. Okay, thank you. Town administrator, $411,159. Finance committee, $1,300. Reserve fund, $295,000. Town accountant, $361,379. Hold. Audit, 0. Hold. Assessor, $269,196. Treasurer, $280,078. Tax collector, $122,194. Town council, $260,000. Human resources, $383,328. Information systems, $650,752. Tax title, $16,000. Town clerk, $162,730. Elections and registrations, $25,000. Conservation Commission, $109,544. Hold. Planning Board, $4,370. Hold. Appeals Board, $1,400. Hold. Land use, $289,166. Police, $2,555,259. Fire/EMS Department, $2,173,087. Dispatch, $683,087. Hold. Building Department, $188,373. Emergency Management, $6,575. Crossing Guards, $5,000. Canine Control, $36,000. Okay. DPW, $1,108,830. Roadway repairs, $826,800. Parks, $257,710. Snow and ice, $200,000. Transfer station, $449,740. Street lighting, $18,200. DPW, wastewater and stormwater management, $361,861. Clean Lakes, 0. B&M Crossing, $3,000. Cemetery Department, $211,604. Health Department, $94,388. Hold. Neshoba Associated Boards of Health, 0. Hold. Animal Inspector, 0. Nursing Services, $10,000. Mental Health Services, 0. Hold. Elder and Human Services, $327,032. Oh, I'm sorry. Next page. $379,917. Thank you. Veterans Agent, $20,119. Veterans Benefits, $175,000. Disability Commission, $1,200. Under Culture and Recreation, Reuben Hoare Library, $777,618. Patriots Day, 0. Memorial Day, $750. Historical Commission, 4,480. Cultural Council, 4,100. Shade Tree Committee, 5,000. And moving forward under other general government, Municipal Building Committee, 25,000. Park Rec and Community Education, 243,580. Was there a hold? Okay, could be a little louder, thank you. Public Buildings, 587,631. Property and Liability Insurance, 500,000. Central Communications, 115,000. Fuel, 155,000. Under Education, Littleton School Department, 23,050,247. Technical School expenditures, 738,406. Under Employee Benefits and Employee Retiree Benefits, 8,661,690. Okay. Long-term debt, total debt service, 3,554,872. And then you have a list of transfers to and from the general fund. And you'll see that the total transfers into the general fund this year, 931,370. There's one transfer out of the general fund for the OPEB trust fund of 2,575,985. The total operating budget is $54,483,471. Net of those transfers into the general fund, it's $53,552,101. All right, can I have a motion to approve all non-held budgetary line items? So moved. Second? All right. Been moved and seconded. All those in favor signify by saying aye. And opposed? Not opposed. Madam Clerk, I find that it's a vote as far as those line items are concerned, and it's a unanimous vote. Now we'll go back to the beginning of the of Article 4, and we'll deal with all of the held line items. And the first hold that I had was under Select Board. So if the person with the hold would come to the center microphone and state the issue there or ask your question.
George Sanders, 672 Great Road. Mr. Moderator, I want to know when it says salary, I thought that the selectmen didn't get paid. Second of all, I want to know what the expense primarily, direct this to the finance director there for this year 22, is $28,300. What have they spent this money on?
Okay, thank you. Select Board.
Thank you, Mr. Moderator, and thank you, Mr. Sanders. I'll answer this question directly, and if you don't mind, Mr. Moderator, I'll take a stab by way of introduction to address some of the others that
Sure.
I think are all kind of related.
Okay.
Specific to the line item in question, actually, Mr. Sanders' town meeting 2 years ago did vote that the board members up here do receive a stipend salary. So this has been in the budget for a couple of years' time. As far as the expenses go, if you notice the trend from actuals in 2021 up to the proposed budget for this year, you recall that for those couple of year period, a lot of the memberships and publications, and for that matter, well, primarily the conferences that board members go to were not held. So usually the MMA conference at a minimum gets usually unanimous participation from our board in attending that. So it was inordinately low a couple of years ago, and this is just being restored back to its norm based on the current costs. Not to presume what the questions may be on some of the upcoming holds, I will state that, best I can to anticipate, some of them correspond to each other per the advice of auditors and sometimes the Department of Revenue. I'll defer to our Finance Director, Alicia Nunley-Benjamin, if I go astray here. But for instance, the town accountant and the auditor expenses, if you just look at that, the auditing has been zeroed out, and that number has been carried into the cost for the town accountant's department. Similarly, when you get to the holds within the regulatory boards or regulatory departments, you might recall that a year ago, town meeting voted to create a land use department, and this is the first manifestation of that, where a lot of what had been traditionally independent costs are being bound together, and in a couple of cases, we are actually increasing hours for some departments, or creating, I think in the case of the Conservation Commission, a part-time position. Things that we'd anticipated doing 2 years ago, but with the uncertainty of COVID and all that entailed on the budget, we've been holding off on that. And we're seeing that implemented here. And beyond that, I can't anticipate what the questions might
Well,
be.
we'll see, yeah,
Yeah.
we'll see what those holds were, but that, I trust that satisfactory regarding Select Board. We'll move next to, there was a hold on both town accountant and the town audit. I don't know if the same person made those holds. Okay, well, please come forward and please identify yourself.
Cheryl Cowley, Hollinger, 44 Tadman Road. Town accountant jumped by 130,000. Now, I can understand some of that might be the audit, but that seems like a lot. I wonder if that could be explained. And I also have a concern about the audit being put under the Department of Town Accountants, since that's where we had problems before when an audit didn't catch. I would like to make sure that those are kept totally separate, and adding the item into their budget seems counterintuitive.
Okay,
Thank
Select
you.
Board.
Through you, Mr. Moderator. I will defer, this is one of those items I will defer to Alicia, since she's the town accountant as well, or at least she runs the finance department, and she can explain
Finance
this better
Director.
than I.
Good evening to the moderator, Alicia Nunley-Benjamin, Finance Director, Chief Honorable Citizen. The reason why we moved it out of audit into town accountant is really, it is within the town accountant purview to look over the audit, and for the audit to come into us. They will also report any findings right to the select board. Any findings, if they found anything on the school side, they would also go to the school committee and present that to the school committee. So it actually is the exact raise that you would see. And I would be happy to provide any citizen who emails me a copy of our line-by-line budget. It's just we condense it for the report, but it is actually a line-by-line.
Okay. That might explain the audit, which was 45,000 last year, but the jump in the budget's 130,000. Can you address some of that?
Yes. So part of that is federal money. So since we've gotten a lot of federal money in, that's going to cost the town more for the audit, for them to come in and do single audits. Also, we're expecting to have a federal audit later on. So I'm trying to keep everything together for when the feds come out to look at the money for us. In addition, the previous year, I'm new to the town, so the town accountant that was here before me was at a lower salary. I'm at a higher salary, and the step increases, and we're also adding a new position. We are going to hire a financial analyst to assist our office with some grants and some warrants, and to make everything actually a lot more transparent than it has been.
Am I allowed to, through the moderator? Can you tell me
Yes.
how much you anticipate the audit? You said you expected the audit to be a lot more. Can you tell me how much you anticipate that to be? Because
Not a
of
lot
federal
more
funding.
as in cost. It's for the grants. So depending on how many, let's, for instance, ESSER grant, we have the ARPA grant, we have the CARES grant. So depending on how many federal grants, which the town usually doesn't have a single audit because it doesn't have a lot of federal money, but now we do. So I have to account for that in addition to the regular audit costs. And that's usually about $5,000 per federal audit.
Thank you.
Thank you. Will the person who put a hold on the audit come forward? Is that you, Mr. Harvey?
Mr. Moderator, I'm Bartlett Harvey, Lake Warren Drive. I just wanted to question the zero for the audit. Given the history of turnover in the town hall, I thought it was a bad idea to zero that out, but my question has been answered. Thank you.
Okay, thank you. We'll then move forward. I think we're going to deal with all the holds and then take one vote on everything that was held in the interest of time. I had holds on Conservation Commission, Planning Board, Appeals Board, and Land Use. Was that the same person? Or we'll start with the Conservation Commission. Yes.
Hi, Erica Podgorny, 6 Fox Lane, and Paul was on the right track with what I was coming up with. I just wanted to, I can see how both for the land use and also for the health services ones I held, that they all went under an umbrella. I just kind of want to know, were there it's hard to compare apples to apples when everything's put together. So what was put together, and are there increases? Are there additional positions being put in? That's all.
Mr. Moderator?
Yes.
Yeah, actually, that's a fine question, because there are enough changes and increases in some of the component departments, positions that don't yet exist yet, but we've talked about in terms of the initial presentation, that if I can find him, Ed Mullen, the head of the Land Use Department, is probably best capable to address the particulars on that. Thank you.
Okay, Mr. Mullen?
Thank you, Mr. Moderator. So yes, to answer those questions through the moderator, there is an additional staffing for Conservation Commission for another part-time agent. The Planning Board, you can see, is a significant reduction because the town planner moves into the Land Use Department as the Assistant Director. And then for the Appeals Board, there's no change there. What used to be the office administrative assistant is now the office manager. So there's been an increase in salary there. It's not very significant, but a slight. And then when we go to buildings, you can see there's a significant decrease in the salary for buildings because the building commissioner is proposed to be moved to the director of land use and buildings. So there's been no salary increase other than the proposed grade and step, but there's no, we're not getting raises, I guess I should say. So we propose to keep our salaries the same as a benefit to the town. We want to prove out the value of the land use department first.
Thank you.
Okay, thank you. I'd like
Pretty
to,
much the same question for the health
for-
services.
for those, okay, but that satisfies your questions for those 4 departments that you held. Okay, I just wanted to recognize the finance director again for an additional comment.
I just wanted to make one additional comment on the conservation, that there is an Oak Hill conservation maintenance line that was added for $12,800, which I will go into when we get to the Oak Hill stabilization. Thank you.
Thank you. Our next hold was on dispatch. Would anyone like to speak to that particular hold?
Charlotte Russell, 73 Foster Street. Could the appropriate party just address what the difference in the changes were, and if it's a new salary added, what the need was? Thank you.
Okay, I can see he's on his way up. Oh, I'm sorry, Mr. Moderator, through you, if I could defer to Chief Pinard on that?
Yes.
All right.
Chief?
Mr. Moderator, you'll see the increase for the dispatch consoles and dispatch center as roughly about $100,000. from last year. If you remember, we were only a 5-person department 4 years ago. We've been increasing it due to the paramedics and the EMS, and we now have 2 full-time dispatchers on 24 hours a day, except for the hours of 11 at night till 7 in the morning. We just recently added one on the fly during mid-year. I know it's out of, we don't normally do that on adding someone halfway through the year, but we did, and we have him on, so we have to budget for him for next year.
Okay, thank you.
Thank you,
Chief.
Mr. Moderator.
All right, we'll move forward then. The next holds I had were regarding 3 totals in the Health Department. I think those were satisfied by the previous explanation. Or is there someone else that put a hold on? Oh, okay, I see. Very gold.
Cheryl Gould, 80 Tehadawon Road. I didn't understand on the Health Department. Did he say that the Neshoba Board of Health is out of the picture now, or just that they moved it into the one category?
Okay, is that correct as well?
Yeah. If
Select
somebody
board?
from, excuse me, I think I can answer this directly because we just voted to extend the contract for Neshoba for a year, but the anticipation is that if we're able to post and fill the position of the in-house health director, then, you know, we'll do that as soon as it becomes feasible.
This may not be the right forum for that, but is that going to be something that comes before the town body, or is it going to be decided by the selectmen and/or the land use planning department? Because it has a tremendous impact on those of us who practice in the arena where the Neshoba Board of Health is.
Well, the vote to
involved.
create the health director in-house was already voted by town meeting, but we haven't filled the position yet. So in the interim, we're extending the Neshoba contract. But you can absolutely follow that up with Board of Health and Select Board at, you know, one of our upcoming meetings.
Thank you, Mr. Moderator.
Okay,
Right.
guess that's that. All right, the next hold I had was Park, Rec, and Community Education. Would someone like to speak to their question on that?
Yeah, I was just wondering what the big change was. I'm noticing that it was 0 before. Is that just because it was 2 years of COVID? Or is it, I mean, we had a park and rec director prior, right?
Yes.
We still do.
All right. Looks like this one's in good hands.
Okay, Alicia.
Hello, Alicia Day. I'm the Director for Parks and Recreation, still here. So yeah, if you look on, so page 19, the amount that is there for the salaries and expenses, it would be the same amount that's missing from that, where are we at? On page 22. So the transfer out for the recreation enterprise, we're going to be moving off of the enterprise onto a revolving fund. So that way the amounts just needed to be in different sections.
Great, thank you.
You're welcome. Thank you.
Okay, thank you. All right, I think I didn't have any other held items, unless I'm wrong. So could I have a motion to approve all the held line items, rather, in the operating budget that we hadn't voted on previously? Okay, and a second? Moved and seconded to approve all of the previously held items. And we'll now take a vote. All those in favor, say aye. Aye. And those opposed? Okay, it is a unanimous vote. And we now have an operating budget, and thank you very much. We will now move from Article 4 to Article 17, because we handled a lot of the stuff in between that was necessary, but not always illuminating, as they say. And 17 is the creation of the Oak Hill Stabilization Fund. And do we have a motion for that, Select Board? Or is it? Okay. Yes.
This is, oh, thank you. I will defer to Alicia Nunley-Benjamin to discuss the details of this transfer. It's a creation of a new fund.
But we need a motion first to put it before the body. So I think it can simply be a reiteration of the article, if that's what.
We don't have a motion.
Maybe.
Thank you.
Right, it's the article. But there's no,
Sorry.
we had no motion, but maybe council can put that in the form of a
No,
motion for us.
I see. I can read the description.
Sure. Yep.
To see if the town will vote to adopt a new stabilization fund pursuant to General Law, Chapter 40, Section 5B, for the purposes of acquiring conservation land or preserving water quality within the town, to be called the Oak Hill Stabilization Fund, or to take any other action related thereto.
Okay, thank you. So then the motion will be to create that new stabilization fund as Select Board Member Nordhaus just read. And now we'll hear from our Finance Director for an explanation.
Thank you, Mr. Moderator. The Department of Revenue has spoken to the town, specifically me, on different cell tower funds. We had an agreement for many, many years on cell tower funds, and we've treated them as special revenue funds, and the Department of Revenue said those are not legal because they don't fund under any specific statute of the law within Mass General Law. In addition, we didn't go for special legislation, so we have to close the fund out to either the general fund or enterprise fund, depending on who owns it. In this case, it's the general fund. And what we decided to do, with the advice of council, was to create a stabilization fund. This way, when the money closes out to the general fund, becomes free cash and certified by DOR, at special town meeting, we can transfer this into the stabilization fund, allowing the commission to still be able to use their funds. And in the meantime, we did put $12,800 in the conservation budget, so at least they could still use the money while waiting, because we're closing out the fund.
Okay, thank you. Is there anyone who wishes to be heard regarding Article 17? Yes, sir.
George Sanders, 672 Great Road. Mr. Moderator, I'd like to know what is the Finance Committee recommendation. They said it was forthcoming, so I'd like to know what it is.
Okay, thank you. Finance Committee.
All right. Thank you, Mr. Moderator. It was unanimous that we do this as it was the law. And just to let you know, we weren't the only community. This is across the state. This is something that DOR informed many communities about, and many communities are cleaning it up at town meeting right now as well. Thank you.
All right, thank you. Anyone else that wishes to be heard? Yes, sir.
Bartlett Harvey, Mill Road, not Mill Road, Lake Warren Drive. I just wanted to know if legally preserving water quality is the same as acquiring conservation land. The way I remember the original vote to set this up for the cell tower money was that it was for the acquiring and preservation of conservation land.
Okay, thank you. Anyone? Okay. Yes.
Through the moderator, a stabilization fund can be used for any legal purpose. So I know it specifically says for acquiring conservation land or preservation, but it can be used for any legal purpose.
But It was originally set aside for strictly conservation.
It's still going to be controlled by the Conservation Commission. So we put some money inside the Conservation Commission budget in the general fund for $12,800, so they could still spend while we're creating this. So it will still be under the Conservation Commission.
Thank you.
Okay. Yes, Select Board?
Just maybe an additional point of clarity. Okay. Additional point of clarity, memory serves correct, and I might, I didn't think so.
Push it up.
You're not supposed to touch it.
I turned it up?
Yes.
You don't have to help me like that. All right. There are actually different cell towers where the funds are directed in different directions based on prior town meeting votes. Somebody here from the Lightwater, I think I saw Nick here earlier, am I correct on that? Some does go to Clean Lakes Fund and some does go to on the conservation, depending upon which fund we're talking about. But feel free to clarify further on that. Thank you.
Yes, through the moderator, Nick Lawler, General Manager of Littleton Electric Light and Water Departments. There are several cell towers in town. They were all, with the exception of Oak Hill, purchased with enterprise fund dollars. And the DOR guidance and rulings is if it's purchased with enterprise fund dollars, then the money has to remain with the enterprise fund. Oak Hill was the only one that was purchased by the Conservation Commission, and DOR did allow that money to stay with the general fund. I think that's right, Alicia, right?
Yes.
Through the moderator, yes, you are correct. This is the only fund that's going to get close to the general fund. The others are going to the enterprise fund.
Yeah, and Spectacle Pond's a good example of that. That money went to Clean Lakes. Clean Lakes will now be funded out of the enterprise fund, for example. Thanks.
Okay, thank you. Yes?
Hi, I'm Joanne Deary from Harwood Avenue. It says acquiring conservation land or preserving water quality within the town. Is that preserving the quality of drinking water or preserving the quality of like our lakes and water?
I don't know. Could be either, I suppose, right?
Thank you. As stated earlier, the water quality statement is what the Conservation Commission wishes to use the funds for is their domain. If they want to use those funds for preserving drinking water or aquifer protection or open space, that is their will.
Okay, thank you. Anyone else? If not, we'll proceed to a vote. All those in favor of the motion as read under Article 17 signify by saying aye. Aye. Those opposed? Motion carries by unanimous vote, and please record, Madam Clerk, that it did pass unanimously. We now move to Article 18, and as I mentioned earlier, we're going to pass over this article. There will be no motion offered because there are no collective bargaining agreements to approve at this point in time. So, Madam Clerk, please record that we are passing over Article 18 and no affirmative action will be taken. And Article 19, you'll recall we passed earlier, the Senior and Veterans Tax Work-Off Program is a long-standing program and needs to be authorized annually, and you approved that earlier. So that brings us to Article 20, the 31 Shattuck Street / Senior Center project. It is a 2/3 majority vote, in that it involves borrowing and involves an interest in land. And I'll just make the motion to put it before the body, moved and seconded by the Select Board, that the town vote to approve Article 20 as printed in the warrant and as printed before you in the handout for tonight. Well, we're going to get, you'll have an opportunity to speak to the article in a second. Just point out that the Select Board voted to recommend approval of the article, and that the Council on Aging also voted unanimously to recommend approval. The Finance Committee voted 4-3 to recommend approval of this article. That's on the green sheet as an update to you, just for informational purposes, not germane to the motion, but so now the question is before the body. Is there a presentation by the Select Board? Now, there'll be an opportunity to discuss, debate this in full after we've heard the presentation. Sure. Yep. We're not going to count this as part of the 10 minutes, Jeff. It's not the clock yet.
There's still people here, but good view. Congratulations.
Yeah. Right. Okay. We haven't started the clock yet.
No, I did start it.
You did start it?
Yeah, you're done.
2 minutes left.
Yeah. Can you wrap it up? All right. Thank you for your patience, folks. Yeah. This, yeah.
Matthew and I were going to do it,
Yeah. I don't. Yeah. I think it'll just be another minute. Now, my predecessor had lots of great stories that he would tell in a moment like this, and I'm a bit at a loss. Well, that won't be happening tonight, but yeah.
Just hold your laptop up.
Can we? Can you do it in a minute, Anthony?
Yeah, you can wrap it up in a minute. Just down to 1 minute.
The lightning round. All right. See a blue screen. I see it. It's up now. Yep. You can. Do you want to start it that way? Do you want to start anyway? Select board member.
Don't touch the buttons. They'll do it over there. They turn it on over there. It's like their first rodeo.
Don't touch that.
When we pick it up, they turn it on.
Should've.
So none of us should be touching.
I didn't touch the button.
There you go. Now you're
Thank you.
live.
Thank you, Mr. Moderator. Good evening, Littleton. On behalf of the Select Board, I would like to thank our Town Administrator, Assistant Town Administrator, Director of Elder and Human Services, the Vertex Companies, LLB Architects, the Permanent Municipal Building Committee, and the Council on Aging Board for the contributions to the Shattuck Street Center project. This process began in 2018 when the Select Board created the Town Building Space Needs Working Group. The group was comprised of town employees, citizens at large, me and Chuck DeCoste as Select Board representatives. Our mission was to collaborate and establish recommendations for a long-term and short-term plan to address town office space needs. In 2019, LLB architects were retained to assist with this undertaking and tasked with performing an assessment of the programming needs of the municipal departments at Town Hall and determine the viability of different structures and sites to meet those needs. The assessment revealed the Elder and Human Services Department has the biggest discrepancy in identified program requirements and their current allocation of space. LLB then evaluated a variety of structures and sites for the EHS department, including Town Hall, 255 Great Road, and the Indian Hill Arts Center. It was determined these properties did not meet the programming needs of EHS, and the team decided to explore options to build a new structure on the Shattuck Street campus. In 2021, LLB presented different scenarios, including building on the south side hill adjacent to the new library. And with support of the Select Board, our administration and staff began working with LLB on a conceptual plan. We recently learned the preliminary cost projections grossly exceeded the budget for this project. But when 31 Shattuck Street was marketed for sale, this presented an opportunity worth exploring, which is encompassed in Article 20 residents are being asked to consider this evening. I will now invite Town Administrator Anthony Insaldi to continue with this presentation. Thank you.
Thank you, Cindy. Anthony Insaldi, Town Administrator. So there's 7 sections to the article. The first section is acquiring 31 Shattuck Street. Number 2 is the authorization to sell the parcel. Number 3 is to create the funding in order to proceed with the purchase. Number 4 is transferring from the Senior Center Stabilization Fund, transferring additional funds to the Senior Center Stabilization Fund. Number 6 is an amendment to amend the June 12, 2021 borrowing article for design from $1 million to $1.5 million. And number 7 allows us to complete the project through construction. So I'm going to now have Liz Trediak, our Director of Elder and Human Services, go through just a few slides of what the new center will look like.
Thank you, Anthony. Hi, Liz Trediak, Director of Elder and Human Services. I'm going to walk you through some slides here tonight to show you what the conceptual design of this building is. Now, we've been working on this diligently for several years, but if you ask some seniors in town, they might say decades went into this project. So just going into this, we had several meetings with architects to determine the square footage that we would need per program room. We went to 5 or 6 different senior centers to tour them as they were newly built modern facilities. We met with other directors, to determine what worked and what didn't work. So this is how we came up with this floor plan and this building design as you see it here. So this is the first floor of the building. This enters through the library section. So if you come down Shattuck Street, the ground level is even with the new library. So if you're standing in front of the library, you're going to be looking at the front doors to the senior center. If you're up on Shattuck Street, you're going to be at ground level seeing a 1-story building. So as you walk through the front doors across from the library, you'll see there's a nice large horseshoe-shaped reception desk to greet every single person who walks through that door. Then that blue section is our administrative wing. So you'll see all of our staff offices, and in planning this, we made sure that there was room for growth. So you'll see that there's an additional outreach workers office there. There's a workroom for our interns and our volunteers, and there is room for our veterans agent in this building. Now, if you walk back out into the lobby, you'll see some casual interaction meeting spaces, rooms to play cards, a little study. And then if you go down further to that large orange box, This is our multi-purpose room, comparable, even larger than what we have at the current town hall space. Now, this room is dividable down the center by a sliding wall, so you can walk through and you'll see that there's the kitchen all the way over on the right. This will be our new senior diner, so we'll be able to divide that room and have one half be the diner and one half still have activities and programs. The new kitchen space will have a nice, it'll be a commercial kitchen, but it won't have that industrial feel. And there is enough space to have our kitchen manager sitting there and a dry goods food pantry right there. The gray areas is restrooms, storage, mechanical rooms. So if you take the elevator or the staircases upstairs, this is where many of our program rooms are. On the left-hand side, you'll see Program Room 1, Program Room 2. This is where we foresee our art classes, our conversation groups, our historical lectures, things like that. There's sinks and storage in both rooms. If you go out back into the hallway, there's restrooms, the billiards tables, and our 2 exercise rooms. One is for stationary equipment that stays in the room for like elliptical machines, treadmills, things like that. And then a smaller fitness room that is for our yoga classes, our Tai Chi, mindful meditation, some of those classes. So this area here, if you walk out back through the billiards room, you can walk out to the patio area that is on Shattuck Street. Now this is a Google image satellite view of what the current town hall looks like over on the left, and they've superimposed an image of what the potential new senior center building will look like. And I keep saying and referring to this as the senior center building, but I just want to make a note that our department is Elder and Human Services. We serve all ages in town, and about 30% of our outreach services go to people under 60. Here's just another view from Shattuck Street, and I just want to also make note that this is set back from the road. There's nice green space barrier between the building and Shattuck Street, and we really worked hard to make this have a nice residential feel and have that nice New England style architecture to it, so it blends in better with the neighborhood. And that's it. Thank you.
All right, so why did we need 31 Shattuck Street? So our Assistant Town Administrator, Joe Layden, is going to go through the next few slides so everybody can understand why that was necessary.
Okay, thanks, Anthony. Hello, everyone. So as Select Board Member Napoli mentioned, a unique opportunity came across a few months ago with the property at 31 Shattuck Street coming on the market. Because of the proximity to the site, of course, we wanted to take a look to see if this was something that could make a project work better. So this is the existing lot configuration of 31 Shattuck, and you can see how sort of at the bottom side, the portion of the property really juts into the tennis courts. And that's one of the things that really makes, say, the existing Shattuck Street site that the town owns a little bit of challenging because of how 31 comes into that portion of the property. So one of the things that we looked at was, okay, with 31 Shattuck on the market, could we basically do a little bit of a land swap? Could we identify a small area, and you can see up here as parcel A, the pointer is of course really small, so it's going to be really hard to see. This parcel here is that triangular piece that intrudes closer to the tennis courts. But since we own the land behind, we could basically swap, give 31 Shattuck Streets an equal amount of land in the back. What that does is basically, and you can see the existing house for Shattuck Street in this bottom right corner, it gives it more of a rectangular shape, makes it more consistent with some of the lot shapes for properties on the street. But it gives us ample room in this area to really fit the building into the slope. One of the things that, as Liz had mentioned, the building is set back. If you imagined where the front edge of the tennis courts are, it's actually just before what was described as this patio area. So one of the things with the designs, you saw from the library side how it was 2 stories, but from Shattuck Street really worked to try to keep it at a lower height, something that was more in scale with the residential properties that are on Shattuck Street before you arrive at the campus site.
Thanks, Joe. So as Select Board Napoli said, we first looked at the hillside or the slope site. And as you can see, the column, we identified that 16,663 square feet. The construction cost was almost $14,500. That was a price per square foot of $867, all in with contingencies and architecture fees and engineering fees. It was $18 million, almost $18,800. As Select Board Napoli said, that was out of our budget. So by having 31 Shattuck Street, we now worked on what you just saw, and we're able to produce a building that's slightly smaller by 100 square feet, 135. And the price tag comes in at just shy of $12.2 million. That's $738 a square foot for a total project cost of $14,647,354, or $886 a square foot. And what we're really excited about is by switching over and being able to utilize that portion of land that Joe identified at Shattuck Street, that this is going to create a savings for the town of $4.149765 million. So we were really excited that we think that we were going to end up with a better building for the seniors, and it's going to cost the taxpayers $4 million less.
Okay, that's 10 minutes. Mr. Ansaldi, are you close to wrapping up?
Yep, we're going to wrap
Okay,
up here.
thank you.
All right, so again, just to recap, Article 1 allows us to acquire Shattuck Street. Article 2 allows the Select Board to sell Shattuck Street, 31 Shattuck Street. Section, right, just right. Number 3 is to transfer from certified free cash $700,000 to acquire 31 Shattuck Street. Number 4, 5, or 5. Number 5 is transferred from the Capital Stabilization Fund, $816,955 to the Senior Center Stabilization Fund. And number 6 allows us, as I mentioned earlier, to increase the design funds from the previously approved $1 million to $1.5 million. And then number 7 allows us to complete this project through construction. And why the Select Board felt that it was important to add this part to the article is, I think we've all heard that interest rates are rising. So if we have an opportunity to get to be able to build this building before coming back to the annual town meeting and maybe saving some interest on that, that it was important to take advantage of the lowest possible interest rates. So this last slide here is, as Select Board Napoli said, this really started in 2016, and it was a $20,000 article to look at space needs. That wasn't enough. We had no return quotes on that, so we had to increase it by $30,000. On May of 18th, annual town meeting, $200,000 to be expended by the Select Board for town building space needs. In May 6, 2019 annual town meeting, $85,000 to expend by the Board of Selectmen to address more town building space needs. May 6, 2019 special town meeting, Article 6, establish the Senior Center Stabilization Fund and transferring $3 million from the Capital Stabilization Fund. And Article number 5, at last year, June 12, 2021 annual town meeting, Article 10, allowed for the borrowing of that $1 million in design, and also to give us the money, the $80,000 to do the study, which ultimately resulted in what you're seeing tonight. If there's any questions, we're happy to answer them.
Okay, thank you for the presentation. Before we open the floor up to a debate, are there any other boards that wish to be heard from on the article? If not, we'll go right to the debate. Anyone that wishes to be heard with respect to Article 20, if you'd come to the microphone here in the center and please identify yourself before you speak. Yes.
Hi, Megan Ford, 28 Shattuck Street. I would love to hear from the FinCom, each member, and why they voted the way they did. Can I ask that through you, and also then have some comments and questions?
Okay, I think the board will share how they voted as a board on the article. I don't know that individual votes would be a productive Discussion, Mr. Chairman, would you describe the board's recommendation?
As you see in the article, we were split 4-3, so I would mention that our discussion, and if anybody watched our FinCom meeting, really stuck to the finance part of it as much as possible. And this was a very complex financial article. So going into it, I think we probably expected it to be split to some degree. When we're talking about previous articles of this magnitude, some of us felt in the 4-3 vote, I can get into what, and I'll allow someone to speak on this side of this as well, but we were looking at articles like the library and previous articles where they were broken up over a year and a half, where you'd put $1 million in here for design, pull money out of stabilization in this article, a year later do this, and all of a sudden the town felt they were committed because, my goodness, we spent $3 million on this already, now we kind of have to do it. So those of us that voted in the positive for this felt that this was a great way for the article to be written. There's $12 million ask. We're all in here. There's not going to be any surprises that are going to push this over. With the money that we're going to be taking out of our stabilization and hopefully some more ARPA, this number got pushed now hopefully south of $9 million, which was, for me personally, very important. Speaking with a lot of the finance team, once we start to creep up on $10 million and keeping it under the levy, you start to worry about your AAA bond ratings and obviously other services that the town's going to need going forward. So we're all very aware that other big projects are coming up the next several years. And yeah, some of those articles will be much bigger than this, and those will obviously have to be an override. But those of us that voted in the positive, I believe, were very concerned about the timeline of the project as well. But this article speaks directly to the cost. There's no hidden numbers in here, and we were comfortable with that. But I will let Mr. Champney will speak kind of on what his thoughts were on the negative side.
Thank you, Gary. Through the moderator to the previous speaker. A few key points that we discussed against the article. The first one was we really don't have a longer range plan looking like 3 to 5 years down the road with regards to the tax estimates and what we're going to see and what they plan to be, and also capital spending and operational expenses and what they're going to mean to our budget. The second one was more project timeline doesn't allow for borrowing until 2023, which is a whole year away. This part of the article is really too early based on rough numbers, and it really doesn't mean that it's a real project budget per se. It could change depending on what interest rates look like and what changes in the next year with the project. And the last piece of the puzzle here is the $10+ million spending project inside the levy. It will really restrict us financially for any big projects that happen to come up down the road. And it's 25% roughly of our total operating budget, and it feels like it should be done outside the levy, not inside the levy. Thank you.
Thank you. I also would like to speak as a citizen that lives across the street from 31 Shattuck Street. Myself and my neighbors were not alerted in any way, shape, or form by the town, and I do feel that that was a result of this kind of being rushed. And I heard through the rumor mill about this, and I went to a couple of the Board of Selectmen meetings recently, and it was actually, said that because this house went on the market, they had to act fast and kind of come up with the plan very quickly. And I would like to just say this needs to slow down, because we've heard from the Financial Committee that there's a lot of things we don't know about this, like operating costs in the future, what's going to happen with our taxes. If we approve this article, we're giving the town carte blanche to do whatever they want with this, and we don't really have the whole picture yet. So I would like to ask that we slow down. I want a senior center. I am happy to support a new senior center for our seniors, and for the future of Littleton. One thing that I am also a little upset about is that the town owns 33 Shattuck Street, and I understand that it will cost a lot of money to bring it up to code in order to do any renovations to the existing building. But that makes me feel like, if my house needed something to come up to code to renovate it or add to it, and I just said, you know what, no, I'll just build another house somewhere else. I don't think we should be building a brand new building right now when we have a building that we own. That I visit the Cameron Senior Center in Westford, and I urge everybody to consider something like that. They have done a wonderful job renovating an existing old building, and it's a very lively and vibrant senior center, council on aging for that community. I would ask that the town consider slowing this project down and really taking their time to come up with all of these numbers, the financials, before we move forward, and not necessarily vote for it tonight, but maybe put it on in the future when we have a better plan. And communicate with the abutters. It might be a friendly eminent domain or whatever it was with the person that they're buying the house from, but that person is leaving the community. We are the neighbors who are living in the town. We want this house to be preserved and it to be done right. There's a lot of trees that are going to potentially have to come down, some of them very magnificent, a driveway that might have to move. I want the 31 Shattuck Street to be preserved for a potential future family neighbor of mine, and I don't want this to be a rush job. Thank you very much.
Thank you. Yes, sir?
Jared Elpiori, New Estate Road. This is more of a technical question on 31 Shattuck. And looking at the maps, it looks like it's an undersized lot that it would never pass modern zoning. And as I understand the zoning laws, once a lot like that gets combined with other property under the same ownership, you can't really subdivide it back out. So I'd just like an explanation of how the town plans to sell off that property after buying and taking a piece of it.
I think on one part of it, and then can pass it around for another part. So the lot is currently under zoning. It is undersized. However, by doing the land swap, we're not increasing the degree of noncompliance. We're maintaining frontage so that doesn't change. We're maintaining the area, so we're not changing in any way that it would be in noncompliance.
Okay, just wanted to be sure. Thanks.
Thank you. Yes, sir?
George Sanders, 672 Grave Road. But first, Mr. Moderator, I want to commend you, the town administrator, the chair of the select board, and the other participants in the overview of this town meeting on television. You did a superb job, okay? I want you to know that. Now, about this senior center. First and foremost, I think we the people need to understand our taxes. People have a tendency to say, if you do this or do that, the tax is going to go up. You have right now probably about 79 or 80% that is being supported by the residents of this town, and the rest of it is the commercial and industrial. So what we need to do is get a little bit more of that, and that drops the points on the resident down a little bit. I am a firm believer, as a taxpayer, as long as you can continue to support projects within the levy, it costs the taxpayers nothing. Because that money is there, that's the money that they're going to spend, that's the money they're going to use. So in this particular case, when I was the chair of the COA, we talked about, I came here and had my house built in '97, and you know how long ago that been? They was talking about building a senior center then. So the point is now, we have the opportunity to go forth in the levy, just like they did the library, and the library jumped in front of the seniors. There's no reason on God's green earth why this shouldn't be passed tonight, because it's not going to cost the taxpayer not 1 red cent more on your taxes, as long as you do it in the levy. Now, the chair over here said at finance about, going outside the levy. I don't think you should never have government reach their hands in your pocket and pull out more money going outside the levy. If you can do it in the levy, that's where we should do it. We should put brakes on some of the other things that the town wants to do, like build another new school. Well, hold off on that a little bit till you get some of the debt paid down. You should be constantly paying down the debt in this town so that you can go and build other things. But the point here is that we have something here now. We need to give it to the seniors. And I said to you as taxpayers here tonight, it is not going to cost you 1 red cent more on your tax bill. Now, what they do when they calculate your taxes, they shift a little bit between the commercial and industrial and the resident. I remember one year they shipped 2 cents to the resident by reducing it by 2 cents. But it is not going to cost us. And there's been a lot of bad stories put out in this town about what the town is trying to do. I listened to the chair when he had the gentleman that owned the property at 31 Shattuck Street. He said it was friendly. He says nothing that the town did wrong. We need to respect that. And I ask you tonight is to vote through what you do not have to increase in your taxes. Thank you, Mr. Moderator.
Thank you.
Andrea Curran, 20 Middlesex Drive. I was just wondering, what are the plans for the house that is there and also the tennis courts?
So as the article says, that the house will put the house back up for sale once we do the lot transfer from
So
parcel.
that money would help, that money from the house would help pay for this? I mean,
So the sale proceeds of that house has to go pay debt service. So that will be part of paying back the project, yes.
okay. And the tennis courts?
In the tennis courts, there's an article that was passed earlier in the consent for the CPC for a feasibility study to replace the tennis courts. So what we're looking at now is looking at potential locations. We'll work with our Park Rec and Community Education. And then once the spot has been determined that the select board is satisfied with, then we'll complete the feasibility study and then hopefully come back in the fall for construction money.
Okay, thank you.
Thank you. Yes.
Hi, Kimberly Harriman, 8 Brant Lane. My question is, it looks like in total what we're kind of coming to the town for is 18.5 million. If you talk about the 1.5 that is for the design and the 5 million that's coming from the Senior Center Stabilization Fund and then the up to 12 million. And 18.5 is quite a bit more than the project estimated cost of 14.7. And I think my question is, A, how did you get the $12 million number? I am concerned about that being in the hands of just the select board and the town accountant and not coming back to town. I really do like seeing the breakdown for how much things are going to cost and having a chance to speak about that. I'm completely in favor of the senior center. I think it looks beautiful. I think with the $12 million and with the $18.5 million kind of budget that we're talking about for total project costs, my concern is that also contractors are going to look at that and say, well, that's the budget. It's a de facto number that they can use to say that's how much it's going to cost. That's what I had to say.
Okay, thank you.
So being a public entity, we're at a disadvantage because everything that we do gets published in our budget book. And lo and behold, every time we go out for bid, they come right in at that number. So they look at that document very much so. Your other question was?
Yeah, I mean, that was one of it, is that if we're actually looking at 18.5 million, then that's what they're going to come back to us with. That's what we're approving tonight, basically, is up to 18.5 million. And I'm wondering where the 12 million came from as a cap.
Okay. All right. So the hillside slope, which we determined not to be a
Right.
good, all right?
I'm looking at the 14.7 in total project cost for the Shattuck Street amount. But I'm looking at this that says, there's the 1.5 for design, there's 5 million from Senior Center Stabilization, and up to $12 million. That comes out to 18.5.
Right. So after tonight, town meeting, if this article passes, we'll have roughly $5.3 million into the Senior Center Stabilization Fund. You subtract that from the 14 million. So although that article says in number 7 up to $12 million, we're only probably going to be about 8. And hopefully, if we've asked the legislature for some earmark money, we'd like to even bring that down, even by, we're probably not gonna start construction until about the spring, I would assume, of next year. That gives town meeting another opportunity to put more money aside once we have
Right.
our free cash certified, and hopefully that borrowing will be even lower.
But again, with this public meeting, what we're telling people is that we have $18.5 million to spend.
No, when we go out, it's, the contractors are gonna look at what we put together as a project cost on that for $14 million. So we also have part of our, on our team, a construction manager at risk who will work with us to reduce that cost and to keep the budget where we need it to be at the 14.
Okay, thank you.
Thank you. Yes.
Hannah Tosi, 211 Harwood. So I just wanted to ask about the specific language where you say you serve all ages of residents, because like you mentioned, you're moving the tennis courts and we don't have a plan yet for where they're gonna be. And it's really nice that the tennis courts are close to the library and the school where a lot of kids go. So I just want to make sure that kids aren't going to lose any of those resources, or that other people in the town won't lose out on this. Like, who exactly would be able to come to the senior center and participate in these services that you provide?
Okay.
Is it okay?
Is
Yeah.
it,
Hi, Liz Trudiak, Director of Elder and Human Services. So it's true, yes, we serve all ages in the town. Anything for children typically goes to the school or through Parks and Recreation, but we work very closely with all of these departments. So if we, so we're moving forward with the article to do the feasibility study for the new tennis courts, and we're hoping that we are able to fold in some pickleball courts. So we're not trying to lose sight of serving everyone in the community. We're hoping that we can still maintain the broad stroke of serving everyone.
Okay, and so like specifically you mentioned an exercise room and some multi-purpose rooms. Who exactly would be able to use those rooms?
Sure. So we've been referring to this as a senior center, but it really, in theory, will be more of a multi-use center. Since we do serve all ages, we will have the veterans agent in there. Typically, most of our programs are geared towards 55 and older, and that's based on who is funding the programs. The Executive Office of Elder Affairs supplies some of our funding, which we use for specific programs. So when we do run under 60 programs or do under 60 outreach, we typically notify people of that or put it in a different section in our newsletter, say, for publicizing it. But for instance, the Littleton Coalition Against Addiction, that falls under our umbrella, is typically under 60 a lot of times, and I foresee things like that in our building. And we also do share our space all the time with Parks and Recreation, and sometimes after hours with Boy Scouts, Girl Scouts, community groups. So we do envision this as being as a center that everyone in the community can use.
Okay, so that sounds really nice, but I just want to make sure during the hours, is it just going to be open to seniors?
I'm sorry, one more time?
So you said something about after hours, other people will be able to use it, but during business hours, will it just be open to seniors?
I think so, yeah. So after, we typically close at 4. We don't have evening hours at this time, but most of our programs during the day are geared towards 55 plus.
Okay, thank you.
You're welcome.
Okay. Select Board?
Thank you. Thank you, Mr. Moderator.
I don't think it's on.
Now? On.
Push it up.
We live? There we go. Thank you, Mark. Thank you, Mr. Moderator, through you to the previous speaker. Our intention is to, we're already looking at replacing the tennis courts, so as far as addressing that issue, that is something that came up when the library was being looked at on that site. And personally, I raised that question to Mr. Rambach, who's sitting next to you right now, and said, where will the tennis courts go? And the intention, ideally, we would have those tennis courts replaced in parallel, and we are looking at a number of places, and as Mr. Ansaldi had mentioned, we are looking at CPC funds to replace them. There are locations in town that we could potentially put them. One of the places that I not to say that this is where they're going to go, there will be some sort of a feasibility, but there's the possibility of putting something up at Cooper Farm where we already have that land designated as recreational space, so we could potentially, based upon the amount of land that was there, put in more tennis courts than we currently have, which would allow us to put in parking and potentially lights and that kind of thing. That would create a better asset than what we currently have. The existing tennis courts, as they sit today, as I understand it from looking at and speaking with the Park and Rec director and staff, are in need of repair. So it's kind of a win-win if we were able to replace two pretty old tennis courts that all the residents of Shattuck Street have been looking at for 30 years or so, and replacing them with a state-of-the-art new complex that would address tennis, pickleball, and any other recreational uses. Thank you.
Thank you. Yes.
Rena Schindler, 12 Shattuck Street. So something that concerns me here is that the article says sum of X amount or any other sum of money, and it says that a number of times. It says things like including but not limited to, and I feel like there is a concern that this needs to stay within the levy, but leaving this article as written, open-ended like this, I feel like that isn't necessarily clear. I feel like there hasn't been any discussion about what overrides are coming up and what we would need to be considering when we approve this in terms of coming overrides. And looking, I mean, and I want to say, this is a great initiative. This has been a long time coming. There really needs to be a senior center. But looking at the plans, which are really beautiful plans, but it doesn't seem like any parking has been added on either of the sites that have been suggested. And if we want to serve more people in town, and we're adding additional services in this area, there should be more parking spaces added. There should be a traffic study done to address this traffic situation on Shattuck Street, which is already very hazardous, not only to seniors, but to anyone walking down Shattuck Street, where people aren't aware of traffic rules, constantly driving down the street the wrong way. So I'm talking about traffic on Shattuck. I'm talking about traffic around this whole campus that we're creating. I'm talking about parking in the campus that we're creating. I think that hasn't really been addressed. And then we're talking about being in a pandemic with possibly more pandemics to come over the next couple of decades, where people would like to have some outdoor recreational activities. That's not really addressed within this beautiful campus that's being proposed. And I feel like if a bit more thought is put into it and these questions are addressed, we might indeed come to a position where we need to have an override. And I just was wondering what the Finance Committee was thinking about that. And I mean, I know that EHS is very confident that they have built a beautiful plan here, and I agree that it is. I just think that there might be a few more points that have been overlooked and that might eventually come up and raise the budget here. Thank you.
Okay, thank you. I think the Finance Committee has already weighed in, but would you like to amplify your comments regarding overrides?
Yeah, I think overrides are always a very difficult conversation when we have on the board. This definitely isn't going to turn into an override. We're very comfortable. We were actually the board that moved this from a $10 million project to $12 million. And this was before we knew anything about the estimate coming in at what number it was going to come in at. So we wanted that flexibility. There was a lot of discussion on whether we lowered that number after the new number came in. And there was that. We went back and forth on that, whether now we can go back to 10 million because the monies that we have put aside for this, and we felt that would be able to push it down still under 9 million. But we do have good stewards looking over this project. We definitely, it's not going to become an override. Your concerns about future projects, certainly with any project, we worried about that. With the library, we were worried about the next project having to be an override. And that's a reality that we're going to be facing, especially with costs just going up and up and up. So we know it's in front of us. There's a lot of discussion to be had with that. But this is one of those things in the community that I think our board in general were fully in favor of, but we had a lot of the same concerns as you. As far as the campus, I will let somebody else speak to the campus feel. I just know that Shattuck makes sense for our seniors. It is a safer, probably one of the safest environments we have in the community as far as traffic and roads. But I would let Anthony or someone else speak to that.
Sure, thank you. So, as I think everybody knows, EHS is housed right now in Shattuck Street, right? And the plan that we're proposing actually picks up 18 parking spaces that don't exist now in the front of that, right opposite the parking of the library. So we're actually picking up parking spaces.
And how do you think this would be affected if the new potential plan to change 33 Shattuck into a residential space might go through?
That hasn't something that's come before the select board right now.
Okay. I think that was at the planning board. That might have been proposed to the planning board, that the current 33 Shattuck would become residential eventually, maybe.
It hasn't come before the select board right now. There's a lot that still has to be identified with that and discussed, and there's no plans right now for that.
Okay, thank you.
All right, thank you. Yes?
Hi, Cheryl Hardy-Faraci, Moore Lane. I'm just curious, some of my questions have been answered already, but I'm just curious as to why this site is now being considered when it was patently refused for the library because of the tennis courts, and now all of a sudden it's being reconsidered again.
Town administrator?
So as Joe pointed out in those slides, the way that that lot was configured, it made it almost impossible to do anything there. But when that house became available for sale now, we saw the opportunity to reconfigure that lot, which now allows the space to build a building there.
I was under the impression that the house was sort of up for grabs around the library time as well. No? No.
Not that I'm aware of.
Okay, thank you.
Yes?
Hi, Joanne Deary from Harwood Avenue. The Friends of the Reuben Hoare Library raised and donated over $1 million for our beautiful new library that's available to all citizens in town for all of the hours that it's open. And I wonder if the timeline of this plan has allowed any opportunity for community groups to raise money to help defray the cost of this project, which is more focused around seniors.
Hi, thank you. Liz Trudiak again. We do have the Friends of the Littleton Council on Aging, who are a wonderful group who raise money for our cause. They did recently send out a funding letter town-wide that had a decent response, and we will continue to work with the Friends to raise additional funds.
Okay. So have we figured out what, like, utility bills and upkeep and maintenance of the building? This is going to be adding a whole new building here. So there's definitely going to be some cost with running and maintaining that building. Do we have any idea how much it's going to add to the budget?
So costs still have to be determined, but just like the library project, when they really didn't have clear answers on that, we're in the same situation with this. So that'll be identified hopefully during the design and design process.
And then what's going to happen with the existing Shattuck Street building? It's a really nice building, and it's kind of getting emptied out. What's the plan for that?
Still town hall. Town hall's there. There's no plans right now.
Those down halls just like expanding to fill the library and all those other spaces that are getting emptied?
So we did take advantage of when the library moved out, and Park and Rec did a nice teen center on the 3rd floor. So we're trying to utilize as much space as we can. We're restricted to building offices there because of code, fire code and building code, which our inspector, our commissioner can speak to. But we're trying to take advantage of every space we have.
Thank you.
Thank you. Yes, sir.
John Popolo Jr., 24 Shattuck Street. I'd just like to express our concern that myself and the rest of the neighbors on Shattuck Street have for this seeming to be kind of rushed through and no consideration was given to us. There's been no traffic studies. The traffic has been increasing and increasing with everything that's been added to Shattuck Street. It's a narrow one-way street, and we're the people that have to live there and put up with all this increased traffic. It just maybe things should slow down and some consideration should be given to this, a traffic study perhaps. Thank you.
Thank you. Select Board?
Thank you, Mr. Moderator. Through you to the previous speaker. So this is definitely something that is, I was going to state that it was something that we've been working on since 2016. It's not like we're rushing this through. And Mr. Sanders corrected me by saying it's been going on since late 1997. So this is not something that is new. It's not something that's been rushed through. In my 7 years on the select board, I've been working on, in some way, shape, or form, space needs in a senior center. And so I don't believe this is something we are pushing through or rushing through. As it relates to the traffic, the town offices, the library, all the services, the ball field behind the Shattuck Street building, they've been there for a long time, and you folks know better than I do how long they've been there. And there was a school there prior to the town offices moving in there, so you've had to deal with a lot of that, and that building has been at the end of your road for quite a while. As far as putting up signs for one way and that kind of thing, that is stuff that we could ramp up enforcement on that, but there's also some things that we've looked at, and I've spoken with some of the neighbors to discuss this. There are things that we could propose and offer to do. Right now, you do have a one-way that comes in from King Street up by the World War I Memorial, goes past Pine Tree Park, and then you come down into the Shattuck Street property. You also have, coming off of King Street across from Badger Funeral Home and the Neshoba Garage, where you can come in and go straight across to the back of the library, to the back of the old library, towards the new library, behind Shattuck Street to the ball field or to the tennis courts, and you have to funnel back out and go one way. You can't take a left out of that driveway. There's been a lot of suggestions from neighbors as well as amongst us to look at that traffic flow. We have looked at that traffic flow, and one of the things that, just kind of spitballing, we've come up with is dead-ending Shattuck Street right kind of in front of where the new senior center is being proposed, right in front of the tennis courts, and whether we put earth there or we gate it off where no vehicle, whether it be the neighbors or anybody, nobody can get down past, say, 31 Shattuck Street, past Mr. Nestor's driveway, across the street from 31 Shattuck Street. Potentially, maybe we could put a little park out there that whole road could be green space, and that could be like the front lawn or the back lawn of the senior center or the Shattuck Center, whatever it is. So it's definitely something that is a consideration for us. It is something that we absolutely want to hear the thoughts and the input of the neighbors, and we want to make sure that we do the right thing. I'm not going to stand here and promise that something like closing off Shattuck Street absolutely can be done and we can do it today, but it is something that I can guarantee I will champion for you and I'll advocate for you, and I think all of the members of the select board will do the same. And so I hope that we do stay in communication, and I ask that you do let us know what it is that you do want. I hope and pray that this does pass tonight, because it is something that we've been working on for quite a long time, and I think the time is right, and now is when we should be doing this. And assuming we do pass this tonight, I ask that you please do stay engaged. I'm speaking to the neighbors now, and I'm speaking to everybody, because if Shattuck Street becomes two cul-de-sacs in different directions, it's going to affect anybody that's going to this property. So please do continue to communicate with us. Mostly I'm speaking to the neighbors right now, but thank you for the input, and it is something that we are looking at. Again, this is something we've been working on for a long time. Thank you.
Thank you. Yes, sir.
Hi, Harvey Atkins, Newtown Road. My question is about the capacity of the rooms that are designed into the building. Now, several times we've had activities going on in the multi-purpose room, and they were over capacity, so sometimes you didn't let other people in once we reached the capacity of the room. And I wondered if this new room that's going to be divided in two, which is more or less the activities area, will that be larger than what is now the all-purpose room at the old school? And has it been calculated that 150, 200 people can use that space if it's wide open? And also, bathroom facilities, making sure they're adequate and such But it was the room that I was concerned about mostly, just to make sure that we had adequate space. You hated to turn people away, so just a thought.
Happy to take
Yes.
that. So just as an example, right now, the multipurpose room at Shattuck Street is about 1,600 square feet.
Right.
And as you know, it's really not usable 1,600 because of those columns.
Right.
So now we're going to sit with the multipurpose room that's 21, almost 2,200 square feet.
Oh, good.
So the goal was obviously not to be in the situation we're in now where you have to restrict lunches to 100 people. You know, we want to be able to expand that and not turn away any seniors that want to come to the center.
Right. Thank you.
Okay, thank you. Yes, ma'am?
Erica Pogborny, 6 Fox Lane. I'm just trying to understand the financials of it. So if we, from what I understand, we have to stay under 10 million to stay within the levy, is that correct? No. Oh, can you, okay.
No. It's really a number that we utilize, you know, speaking with the town treasurer and also Alicia on, it's financially responsible. We don't like to have these projects that are going to start really putting pressure on the next few years, if you will, just on hiring people that we're going to need, more services, things like that. So we feel that currently that $10 million mark makes a little bit more sense for us to be comfortable with on projects that we feel can go inside the levy. We're comfortable with that number based on all of these things that we're talking about with, and keeping a vision on what's coming down the road. But fully understanding that any large projects of this nature, if they just hit back to back year after year, obviously we're going to have overrides to do them.
Okay, so if we approve the 12 million tonight and then they end up, you know, by the time we go to build this, we actually need the full 12 million. Yeah. Is that under the levy? And what if the final project cost, when we eventually do build it, exceeds that 12 million? Then what happens?
Yeah, we'd have to come back to you to ask for money, and that's something that was a great concern, not only our board, but also the select board, that we don't ever want to have to do. So we're looking at that 12 million number, which seems like a large number now that we know the project came down, because we have money put away that's going to press this number with our stabilization money that we've put towards the senior center, and some potentially ARPA money that's being moved over to press this number south of 9,000. And even further, I know Mr. Ansaldi talked about pressing it towards 8,000, even 7,000. So, million, did I just say 1,000? It's a really small building. Boy, where's my brain? Million. So that number became much more comfortable for our board to swallow, and we would never, believe me, this board, if we were talking about this had a chance of bursting the 12 million, that's not something that we would consider, and we'd be very, very upset. And I'd be the first to stand up in here and say that we made a horrible mistake. But this, we are very, very comfortable with the numbers that LLB came up with, the amount of money we've put aside for the last 6-7 years for this project, to press that number and keep putting money towards it. And the opportunity potentially for a grant over the next year. Okay. Now that the state will know that we're serious about this, it just gives us more time, hopefully, to get some earmarked money even from them. So I hope that answered.
It does. I'm just curious. So if it, you know, I don't think anyone thought the costs that are happening today would be what the costs were a year, you know, if we were doing this a year ago.
Yeah.
So if for some reason it is more, can you start building it with the 12 million we said and then come back and say, hey, we need 5 more million, but we've already started the project, so you got to give it to us?
Yeah, we can't.
No, okay.
So there's a project timeline, and Anthony, if you want to speak to that.
Yeah, we can't award a contract unless we have a funding mechanism in place. So if that came in at $25 million, no, we cannot continue.
Okay, thank you.
Thank you. Excuse me, are you a registered voter? I think you've got one of the...
Karen Amy Rose, I own 12 Shattuck Street. I had a two-part question. Can I just ask and you can decide if you want to answer? Or?
Well, if you're not a registered voter, I'm not going to allow you to speak.
Okay.
Yeah.
I
I'm
live
sorry-
on
sorry,
Shattuck. Okay.
Yeah, thank you. Yeah. Okay, yes.
Christine Nordhaus, registered voter, Star Hill.
All right.
I just wanted to clarify this sort of sense I've been feeling about people thinking that the senior center is going to somehow exclude people. So for years, I ran Littleton Community Farm, and I worked closely with Elder and Human Services, who helped provide food to families in Littleton who were, and veterans in Littleton who were really the most vulnerable residents in Littleton. Elder and Human Services definitely takes care of all of the vulnerable residents of Littleton, including the seniors, but there's so much more that they do, and we are moving this incredibly vital town function into a space that's 16,000 square feet, which is the same number of square feet identified in the space needs study that Elder and Human Services needed to continue to help fundamentally and the people of Littleton. And I just want to make sure that people hear loud and clear that what Elder and Human Services does is fabulous for the seniors, but it's fabulous for everyone else in Littleton too, especially our most vulnerable residents. This is a vitally important project to pass. The money is available, and we need to move on this now. Thank you.
Thank you. Yes, sir.
Bob Romney, Mill Road. I'm retired from the police department. Now I'm on the Permanent Municipal Building Committee. I backed this all the way. Years ago, when I was working in the department, we used to do a senior check program. We'd go around to the seniors, check in on them, spend a little bit of time with them. The department, as busy it is now, that's you just can't do it. When we moved out of the old police station, they thought that was a good building for a senior center. Well, then the fire station came along, and they built a fire station. Prior to the fire station, it was the police station. After the police station, the fire station, the library came along. Now it's time for a senior center. And I believe the seniors really need it. Thank you.
Thank you. Yes, sir.
Jennifer Aroni, 26 Howard Avenue. I'm not going to give you a lecture. I'm not going to speak too long. My wife, she says to me, you better behave. Okay. The question is, look around. You see anybody? The young lady was under 18 and she wanted to speak. But look here, how many seniors are there? I've been waiting for a senior center, not because I like it, but because I saw so many elderly in this town, which I love everybody. Even my administrator, where did he go? Oh, he's over there. Okay, what I'm trying to tell you, most of the people here, they love to have a senior center. And everything is done by the book. As Mr. Sanders says, it's under the level. So, I mean, if something extra comes up, we'll get the seniors to donate some money. Couple bucks here, couple bucks there. I say, let's do it. And let's do it now.
Thank you. Thank you, sir. Yes.
Hi, I'm Michael de Blasio, King Street. Just a few questions on the transparency of this real estate transaction. So the original price was X. How did this $700,000 arrive? And I'll keep going. Who is the town actually buying the house from? Has the town already signed the purchase and sale agreement? Who's handling the real estate transaction? Am I going too fast? Okay. And how long is the town going to hold on to 31 Shattuck Street, the home itself, before they dispose of it? And who's going to handle that real estate transaction?
Okay, thank you, sir. Select Board?
Thank you, Mr. Moderator. Through you to the previous speaker, and Mr. Insaldi can keep me honest if I go off the rails a little bit. So this was originally a standard real estate transaction that the town wasn't the highest bidder. So the next option was to see if
Who was the highest bidder?
someone that didn't complete the transaction. So
Well, I think there should
we
be
met
some,
with Sir-
I think there should be some clarity as to who the town was bidding against.
I believe it's irrelevant, but I'll answer the questions you asked, and then if you want to follow up, it's up to the moderator. So we met with the owner of 31 Shattuck, found out what the price that they were offered in a standard transaction was. We offered the same price, which was $675,000, and that's the number that we proposed to pay the owner of 31 Shattuck Street. This is a friendly transaction. As far as how long we're going to hold the property for, we're going to hold it until we're able to market it and get the highest and best value so that we can put the money back into offsetting the cost of building the senior center. As far as maintaining the building, we don't plan on holding it long enough to have any real issues come up, but while it is under our control, care, custody, and control, whatever does come up would have to use the procurement processes that municipalities have to use in order to do whatever maintenance that needs to happen. There was one other question, as far as the realtor, who's going to handle the transaction? We're a municipality, so we can't just go on the open market and call up a realtor and say, hey, put this in the market for us. We have to put it out to bid under Chapter 30B of Mass General Law. So it would have to go out for proposals, and we'd have to see all suitors, as we just recently did with 12 Robinson Road.
Wasn't there a listing broker when the house went originally for sale? And the price just went from $675. I saw $700,000.
You want to speak to that?
Sure. So the reason why we added $25,000 because we have to do surveying and we have to do other transactions for the closing.
Okay.
Thank you.
Thank you. Well, but you didn't answer the question B. Who was the listing broker when the house went up for sale?
It's irrelevant.
Do they get a commission?
It's not our purview. There is no commission paid in eminent domain sale.
Oh, okay, thank you.
Thank you. Yes.
Anita Harding, 19 Russell Street. I'm first going to speak as the vice chair of the COA, and then I'd like to speak as a citizen. As the vice chair of the COA for several years, I've come to understand what EHS and COA does every day for all of the citizens of Littleton. Elder and Human Services is for everyone. It's not just for the elderly. And we have a revolving door every day, and our outreach coordinator is working overtime to handle the people in the situations that come up in town. They're doing a great job, and they need the space. Now, as a citizen of Littleton and a taxpayer for several years, I've seen new schools being built, a new police station, a revamping of the fire station, a new library. And yet, the EHS and COA is using 3,500 square feet every day. That is a disgrace, and the town should be ashamed. The work that is done in that department, a lot of people don't know because they don't use it, they're not elderly, or they're not in a position where they need help. But it's a disgrace that we would sit here and argue about this money that's within the levy and within our tax rate, and we should vote yes for this senior center. It's needed. Thank you.
Thank you. Okay. Yes, go ahead.
Jan Hubro Callahan, Dogwood Road.
Could you come forward to the microphone?
Okay.
Thank you.
Do I need to say my name again?
I can't hear
Jan
you.
Hubro Callahan, Dogwood Road.
Okay.
I'm very supportive of a senior center, and I appreciate all I've heard tonight about what EHS does. What would make me feel a little more comfortable supporting the project, something that one of the gentlemen over here on the Finance Committee referenced, we don't have a picture of the next, 3 to 5 years. We hear talk of Shaker Lane needing something or other. What else is going to come before us in the next 3 to 5 years? I know you can't answer all those questions right now, but when might we be able to see some type of plan, which may exist? It's hard to keep up with all the information that's out there, but I think if I, as a taxpayer, had a better idea of what my tax-paying future will look like over the next, 3 to 5 years, based on what else is coming down the pike, I would feel more comfortable supporting this project. So when might we be able to have that kind of information? And I don't think we're arguing here. I think we're asking for more information. Everything I've heard is people supporting this project. It's just that we want to be well informed. We want to know what's in store for us.
Okay. Town Administrator?
Thank you. So we have a capital improvement plan, and it was only a 5-year capital improvement plan prior to this year. But this year we said, we want to look out. We want to look to the future, which you just said. So we expanded that to a 10-year capital plan. And FinCom and the Select Board, during the budget hearings, goes through the entire plan. So that's a great opportunity to see what's coming down the pipe, because we're really trying to identify not just what's facing us today
Right.
or tomorrow, but what's coming down the road, so we can plan accordingly.
So is that something that I, as a citizen, can access? And if so, how do I do that?
Absolutely.
I come over
think
there and grab it from you? No, okay. There's a book. Okay, and that book is out in the hallway?
It's online,
Online.
and it's online. And
Okay.
if you need a copy, you just contact my office, happy to give it to you.
Okay, thank you very much.
Thank you. Okay, we've been at this over an hour, so the next few will be the last, I think.
This is another quick one. You mentioned that you have to go through a bidding process on 31 to sell it off. Historically, as I understand those bidding processes, they're not very consumer friendly. Generally, it's sealed bids, cash deal, and basically it locks it out to a retail customer, like a family trying to buy the property, and tends to knock the price down. Am I missing something? Are you allowed to sell it through more conventional means and open it to a wider range of buyers?
Town Council?
Thank you, Mr. Moderator. Tom Harrington, Town Council. Through you to the previous speaker, we'll use every means available to us to sell this property and open it up to the broadest number of potential sellers. We're still bound that we have to follow 30B, and we will do so, but within the context of 30B, we'll try to reach as large an audience as we can.
Thank you. Yes?
Hi, Mr. Moderator. Carol Monk Popolo. I live at 24 Shattuck Street. First of all, I'd like to thank particularly Paul and now I'm going to have and Chuck for speaking to the neighbors on Shattuck Street about the problems that we already have and the issues that we have. Thank you very much for doing that. And I just want to let everyone know that our concerns do not mean that we don't completely support a senior center. It was just the manner that things happened, and one of our biggest thing is our safety concerns on our street. So again, thank you for your time, for listening to me.
Okay, thank you. Yes, sir.
Mike Fontanello, 213 Harwood Avenue. I'd ask that we move the question, please.
Okay, thank you. All right, I think since there's no one else in line, I think we can dispense with moving the question and closing debate. We can move right to a vote. If you'd like, I'll explain that this requires a 2/3 vote since it involves both an interest in land and borrowing. I think that I suspect a voice vote would not be determinative in my mind. So I'm going to call for a hand vote on this, so we'll have a precise count, so there'll never be a question. So I'm going to need the assistance of a couple of tellers, Madam Clerk, if we could. I already have counters. You have counters available? Yep. So we're going to handle it in that way, then we know exactly what the count was, and it's not about who shouted the loudest. So I'll repeat the motion for you. It's been moved and seconded by the Select Board that the town vote to approve Article 20 as printed in the warrant, and that would include parts 1 through 7, just as it's written here. Okay, all those in favor, please raise your hands and keep it up until you know you've been counted. Okay, I think maybe my ears could have handled that, but. Okay, all those opposed, please raise your hand, keep them raised. We got one more coming in. Keep your hand up until you know you've been counted. Give the clerk a few moments to calculate that. We'll move on, if you don't mind, with the next article. As sponsored by the school committee, it's not terribly controversial, I don't think. It's also what happens to be a new article, so we thought the voters should have the opportunity to vote on it separately. It's been moved and seconded by the school committee that the town vote to approve Article 21 as printed in the warrant. And I don't know if Superintendent Clenchey or Committee Member Hunt would like to speak to this.
This on? This is just basically, we can't collect tuition right now for our transition students who are working on life skills and independent living skills, age 18 to 22. We have a new PACE program at the high school, which is much more comprehensive and allows us to better service some of these students. And so we're just looking to get approval to collect tuition from possible out-of-town students coming in for that program.
Thank you. Is there anyone who wishes to be heard with respect to Article 21? If not, we'll proceed to a vote. All those in favor of the motion as read, please signify by saying aye. Aye. Those opposed? Declare it to be a unanimous vote. The article passes. Thank you very much. Moving forward, I'm sorry, I think we've got a total. Okay, thank you. Madam Clerk, there were 185 votes cast in total. The two-thirds majority required 123 affirmative votes. There were 148 affirmative votes and 37 in opposition. So Article 20 passes, and I do declare it a vote. Thank you very much. We'll move on to Article 22. Again, this is something that fairly routine, but it's the first time town meeting is seeing it, so that's why we're handling it this way. It was. Yep. Moved and seconded by the Select Board that the town vote to approve Article 22 as printed in the warrant and in your handout. Who's handling this for the board, or the town administrator explaining it? Town Administrator Ansaldi?
Sure, thank you. So this article, we get a fee for every Uber or Lyft, and it's a real small amount. So we normally just bill that up. But this year, the Highway DPW Department wants to utilize some money from that, so we need town meeting authorization to continue with the purchase.
Okay, thank you. Is there anyone who wishes to speak to Article 22? If not, we'll proceed to a vote. All those in favor of Article 22 as read, please signify by saying aye. Those opposed? Okay, I declare it to be a unanimous vote, and Article 22 is passed. Thank you very much. We'll move forward now to Article 23, co-sponsored by the School Committee and the Select Board. I'll read the motion. To be moved and seconded by the Select Board and School Committee that the town appropriate the amount of $700,000 from certified free cash for the purpose of paying costs of a feasibility study for the Shaker Lane Elementary School, 35 Shattuck Lane, Littleton. Shaker Lane, Littleton, including the payment of all costs incidental and related thereto, for which the town may be eligible for a grant from the Massachusetts School Building Authority, MSBA, said amount to be expended under the direction of the Shaker Lane School Building Committee. The town acknowledges that the MSBA's grant program is a non-entitlement, discretionary program based on need, as determined by the MSBA, and any cost the town incurs in excess of any grant approved by and received by the MSBA shall be the sole responsibility of the town. And you'll see that the school committee and select board voted to recommend approval of this article. I guess I'm wondering if the finance committee has a position on this, Mr. Wilson, if you'd be willing to state that at this time.
Yes, this was a unanimous vote for the Finance Committee as well.
Okay, thank you. Okay, is there a comment from the school committee? Mr. Hunt?
Hello again. So Shaker Lane, for those of you who have sent your kids there, we've put a lot of Band-Aids on it over the years and tried to update it as much as possible. If you go into the building, a lot of the classrooms look the same as it did when I was there in 1984. So we don't know what has to be done with Shaker Lane, whether we can put an addition on, or whether renovate, or make a whole new school. But this is the first step, would be the feasibility study. We were lucky enough to be granted access to the Massachusetts School Building Authority program, which would be a cost-sharing program, and we would expect that some of the costs of the feasibility study would also be reimbursed depending on what they find.
Thank you. Is there anyone that wishes to speak to Article 23? Please come forward to the center microphone. Yes, sir? We should move that microphone back, I think, George, maybe, for the next meeting. There you go. Right at
George
center
A.
court.
Sanders, 672 Great Road. Mr. Moderator, I have a little bit of great concern here with the town saying taking $700,000 out of free cash. There are no free cows. This is taxpayers' money. It's taxes that have been overpaid by taxpayers. Now, the school gets quite a bit of money from the state and from the federal government. Why is it that they don't have money in their budget to do this, instead of coming to the town, asking the town for additional money that's already been given to them for this budget year. I just don't see us going into debt. I just mentioned early here about the senior center, and before we can leave here tonight, here they're talking about wanting to build Shaker Lane now. This doesn't make sense. We need to do things in the right way around here. You need to take and wait your turn on what needs to be done. You build schools, state, police department, fire station, and the library. Listen, we only got so much money as taxpayers within the levy. When they start talking about giving you $700,000 as tax-free money, there ain't no tax-free money. And they need to stop using that term, tax-free money. The school always tuck in money in their budget. I've dealt with enough school committees that I know. So I'm saying, why don't the school have any of this money that they need from their budget to put in this study? I don't think the town should be footing the whole bill. Thank you, Mr. Rodriguez.
Thank you, sir.
Mr.
School
Moderator.
committee?
All right.
Yes.
Through the moderator to the previous speaker. School committee actually returned $450,000 to the town this year from our last year's budget. We earmarked it. We wanted to earmark it for this specific purpose. So that's $450,000. We also cut our budget by half from what it was originally requested. So that money is coming really indirectly from the school committee.
Thank you. Is there anyone else that wishes to be heard on Article 23? It requires a simple majority vote. If not, we'll proceed to the vote. All those in favor of the motion under Article 23 as read, please signify by saying aye. Aye. Those opposed? Okay. Article passes by the necessary majority. Thank you. We'll move now to Article 24. It's an article sponsored by the Board of Water Commissioners for water main project. I'll read the motion to you. Moved and seconded by the Board of Water Commissioners that the town vote to approve Article 24 as printed in the warrant, provided, however, that the amount borrowed on such terms and conditions specified in the article shall not exceed $2 million. And you'll see that the Water Commissioners, the Finance Committee, and the Select Board all support passage of this article. I'll recognize Mr. Lawler, the General Manager of Littleton Electric Light and Water Department.
Thank you, Mr. Moderator. This is more of a mechanical article. This is to replace water main that's within the sewer district. As we rip up roads, put sewer main in, there's some water mains that are over 100 years old that we're going to address during that time. We actually have the money and retained earnings to pay for it, but we don't know when and what fiscal year it's going to hit. So this will be more of a short-term borrowing. It's borrow authorization needed for that short-term borrowing. We won't bond it, and then once it hits, project hits, we'll use our retained earnings to pay for it. I don't know if there's any questions on the article.
Thank you, sir. Anyone who wishes to speak to Article 24? Any questions? I think there's one behind you. Mr. Lawler? Yes, sir.
Jerry Delpiore, New Estate Road. Are they going to find any surprises? I know on New Estate, when they were relaying the road, they found, I think it was 1,000 feet of old asbestos cement pipe, and I think there they were able to just bury it and leave it, but if they got to pull that up, I assume that can get pretty expensive.
Thank you. Yes.
Yeah, I don't think New Estate was quite a surprise. We knew the pipe was there. It was the compaction required by the state on top of the pipe that caused those issues. There's a lot of roadway being uncovered. I'm sure we'll come across some surprises. Hope not too many. But we're taking a fiscal approach to this to try to replace as much old infrastructure as we can as we dig up roads. The department contemplated even more water mains during this, but we do realize, and the board realized, we've borrowed a lot of money over the last 3 town meetings. It's been actually a quiet town meeting for us today. It's been nice. I'm sorry, I even have to be in front of you for this one.
Thank you. Anyone else wishes to speak to Article 24? the water main project? If not, we'll proceed to a vote. It does require a 2/3 majority, being a borrowing article. Try this on a voice vote. All those in favor of the motion as read, please signify by saying aye. Aye. Those opposed? Okay, it passes by the necessary 2/3. In fact, I think I declare it to be a unanimous vote. I didn't hear anyone in the negative, so please record that, Madam Clerk. We'll move to Article 25. No, need to hold. We'll go right ahead with it. This is a Select Board article, authorization to sell 12 Robinson Road. Moved and seconded by the Select Board that the town vote to approve Article 25 as printed in the warrant. Does the Select Board have any introductory comments? Yes, Ms. Napoli.
Thank you, Mr. Moderator. So in May 2018, the voting residents of Littleton approved the acquisition of the Baker Homestead on 12 Robinson Road with the condition that the property would be held for historic preservation purposes. Since that time, the Select Board has issued an RFP, and we did receive 2 respondents to that RFP who will be interviewed by the Select Board at our meeting on May 9th. So just as we were required to obtain the approval of the voting residents of Littleton to acquire the property, we're now required to obtain your approval to sell the property. So that is the purpose of Article 25 that is before you this evening. Thank you.
Thank you. Is there anyone who wishes to speak to Article 25? I heard a hold earlier, but no need to hold. Go right ahead with your comments, sir.
John Ledger, 305 King. I understand that the land was being considered to be sold to somebody who would subdivide it, and I'd like it on the record that the land, if sold, not be subdivided. Thank you.
Okay, thank you. Select Board have any comments?
Thank you to the last speaker. I would just encourage you to come to our meeting on May 9th, and we consider the responses that we did receive for that parcel. Thank you.
Thank you. Yes, sir?
George Sanders, 672 Great Road. So at the May 9th meeting, are we going to know what the town is going to sell this property for?
At what meeting, sir?
I said May 9th.
Oh.
The board meeting. Board meeting, okay.
Sorry, it's the 16th? Sorry, my mistake. Correction, the meeting's not the 9th, it's the 16th. Thank you.
Okay, either 16. We citizens going to know how much you're going to sell 12 Robinson Road for?
Through the moderator. Oh, God, oh, goodness sakes, excuse me.
Yeah, we should know before we give it away.
Hold on one second. I'm sorry, Mr. Sanders, through the moderator. Is the meeting the 9th? The interviews are on the 9th. Thank you. Mr. Sanders, we will entertain the proposals at our meeting on May 9th. Thank you.
Thank you. Yes.
Carolyn Mueller, 8 East Roxbury Drive. And I've said this before, but I just want to say that I'm disappointed that we've come to this vote. I really wish that we could have come up with a solution to turn the Kimball Baker House into a cultural, historic, or neighborhood asset for the town of Littleton. I wish there had been more support to create something for us here in the community. I think we're losing out by selling it, and although we should count it as a win that we are going to preserve the house, I still think we are going to lose something. The impending development around the Common and along Great Road will drastically change the feel of our town, and we need these anchors to our history. I do hope that the future owners, whoever they may be, will understand their role and that they will continue to play in that history. Thank you.
Thank you. Yes, sir.
Just to follow, Jared Oppiori again, just to follow up to George's question and comment, and that is, I hope the town at least breaks even on the sale or comes close to it, because I'd hate to see the house basically given away to a developer, even if it is preserved.
Select Board.
Moderator, just since the dates were getting bounced around, on the 9th, we're going to be interviewing, or representatives of the town will be interviewing the two respondents to the RFP process. The 16th is when the board meets. We're under no obligation to go with any of the proposals if we aren't satisfied with them. And so there's, in either event, whether we pick one of those two to go forward with in negotiations, or whether we, don't and consider other options, the requirement the town meeting put on this when we acquired the property, which will be part of any transaction going forward, is that there'll be a historic restriction on the property. We did use the intervening time, as some of the previous speakers who were a party to it, in fact, to explore multiple options, or try to explore multiple options with uses that would potentially continue town ownership of the property for potentially a museum or some other civic use, a gallery with a cafe component. But sadly, none of those came to fruition, and as time went by, the costs just kept mounting, and we had to fix the roof, do other repairs to the building, and it's so some of us know or learn, if you own an older building, it should be in the hands of somebody who's actively used it to keep it up. It becomes an ongoing risk to itself. So I think while I too would prefer that we had found a cultural partner to carry this forward, we are going to accomplish the principal mission, which is to preserve the building. And if it doesn't happen to feel right with either of these two respondents, we have no obligation to go forward with them. But that'll be an open process that the town will have an opportunity to take a look at.
Thank you. Is there anyone else that wishes to speak to Article 25? If not, we'll proceed to a vote when the motion is read, remembering that it requires a 2/3 vote because it involves an interest in real estate. All those in favor of the motion as read, please signify by saying aye. Aye. Those opposed? Okay. Passes unanimously to my ears, and please record that. Madam Clerk, and before we get to the last two, or handling the last two articles on the warrant, I just wanted to once again really thank everybody that's up here at the head table with me, the town administrator, assistant town administrator, their team working for them, town council, but the board especially, is always greatly helpful to me. Likewise with the finance committee, finance director, town clerk, and her team of tellers, indispensable as always. They make it pretty easy to show up here once or twice a year and look good, but they're the ones that are doing the real work out there. I'd like to thank LCTV again, Mark and Kirby and Nancy Glencross's help. Who would that be? I thought I got everyone, but
Can I do something as well?
yeah, just a second, yeah. And I think I'm ready with my thank yous here, and then we're going to handle the last two. We're going to actually formally pass over those last two articles, but Select Board Member DeCoste asked for a moment.
Thank you, Mr. Moderator. I just want to take this opportunity to say thank you to Mr. Joe Layden, our Assistant Town Administrator, who at the end of this month will be moving on to another town. He'll be becoming the town manager in the town of Upton. So I just want to extend our gratitude to you.
Stand up.
Thank you, Joe, and we wish you all the best.
Thank you very much. Okay, we'll now go through the formality of passing over the next two articles. The petitioners of Article 26, the ban on the plastic bags, asked that we pass over that article. They'd like to bring it back to a future town meeting, and of course we would. So we'll pass over that article. Madam Clerk, please record no affirmative action was taken on Article 26. And likewise with 27, this is a little bit of an archaic article. We used to have to do budget line item transfers at town meeting with the Municipal Modernization Act a few years ago. Those transfers can be done at the Select Board and at the Finance Committee level, so we don't have so many transfers for town meeting, and we don't have any to be passed under this article, so we will pass over Article 27. And Madam Clerk, please record no affirmative action taken on Article 27. I'd like to remind everyone to please vote on Saturday. And I believe that's right here, isn't it, Madam Clerk? So you know where the place is, so I expect to see you Saturday to vote. I will now entertain a motion to dissolve this annual town meeting. So moved, seconded. All those in favor? Aye. Those opposed? I declare this town meeting dissolved. Thank you.